Everybody in the whole wide world listening in to MrRipper stories knows one thing about dear old Brian Von VA, aka me. I love wholesome stories, and today is no different because we're exploring part 3 of what are some of your wholesome D&D stories. So, in the campaign that I previously played in with my Hex Bard, the party had been tasked to track down and kill a mad scientist artificer that had been last spotted in the town of 1,000 travelers, dun dun dun, a refugee city-state designed to provide relief from people escaping the Eclipse War to the south. During our escapades in the town, we discovered that an underlying bigger threat was looming over the city. It was in the middle of a famine and was being raided by a tribe of lichens. Before the raid, we huddled all the civilians in the castle to avoid any casualties in the conflict between the lichens, the party, and the guard. After the chaos was over, my character and the party's Death Domain cleric broke down a castle wall to investigate some noises coming from the dungeon, and, in the process, discovered that the cause of the famine was someone hoarding food. When we discovered the food, the remaining townspeople swarmed us and funneled into the dungeon catacombs under the castle, right into a death trap. Under the castle was the aspect of gluttony, a corrupted infant prince that had been turned into a Wendigo by the resurgence of a Dracolich that was the cause of the Eclipse Wars. Said Wendigo mind-controlled its own mother into feeding it all the food in the town and on the townspeople. The party, discovering that the child of the queen is the Wendigo, are forced to fight it to try to save the remaining townspeople and the queen herself. Trying to get her to stay out of combat, we didn't know if she was a caster or not, the cleric casted Dispel Magic on her, freeing her from its mind control, allowing us to converse. My character, Virgil, was the heir to the Empire of Cyrodiil, and due to a plague that nearly wiped out the entirety of the elven race, needed multiple wives and more barons for the country. So I decided to do the best thing that I could, seduce the queen in the middle of combat. Huh? If we can't save and destroy the curse on your son, I will give you all that you've lost, a new husband and myself, and a new child should we not be able to cure him. And I rolled a motherfucking natural 20. After a 5-hour-long fight, I'm not kidding, this thing kept regenerating by eating our spells, we were able to get him to a point where his attitude had changed. This giant Wendigo-like abomination was throwing a temper tantrum like a baby. Realizing that the boy may still be alive, our sorcerer, Iroh, casted Fly on my PC, allowing me to get on top of the creature's head. Once landing, Virgil pulled out his kalimba and played a lullaby, successfully putting the monster to sleep. Once the Wendigo was asleep, we managed to cure it from its curse, restoring him to his previous self, a newborn, high-elf baby boy. Virgil is now an adoptive father to a son he named Runel, and has decided to bring Queen Cyana along with the party since she's a level 12 sorceress. And that's how my character pulled off the most wholesome of seduction rolls. Hey, I'm glad it wasn't that typical seduction roll of trying to get laid in the middle of a fight. My light domain cleric, Dova, has a string of wholesome moments throughout her story, but this one topped the others. It happened in our last session. Dova's original name, and I hope that I can pronounce this correctly, is Riothia Malatai, and she was born on Ixanos, among the Forgotten Realms equivalent to the Amazonian people. She rose through the ranks and became a commander of an elite fighting force, and eventually married her second in command. Unfortunately, the marriage was short-lived. 2 years later, she lost her wife in battle, and was subsequently found to have been partially responsible for the deaths of her wife and several others in the squad. The tribunal pushed for a death sentence, but due to her long and outstanding service, she was pardoned down to being kicked out of the military and losing the right to own property. Losing the right of property ownership was tantamount to being exiled. Among the people of Ixanos, only property owners had true legal standing within their clans. Such a person also could not inherit their family's home and lands, which would revert back to clan ownership for the clan's leadership to divvy out as they saw fit. With no reason to remain among her people, she decided to leave the only home she'd ever known. On her journey, she was approached by a Deva who told her that he was her guardian, and that she was actually an Aasimar chosen by the gods to serve as a champion. She chose to follow Helm that day and become a protector, seeking out and destroying anyone involved with the people who killed her wife, people she soon discovered were cultists attempting to revive Cyric. She took on the celestial name Dova and had a new suit of armor forged, a suit of armor specifically meant to instill fear in any cultists of Cyric who saw it. It was an opulent and ornate armor, shining bright white and gold in the sun, making her instantly recognizable to those unlucky enough to be her prey. Part of this armor is a special set of bracers called the Bracers of Deflection. These bracers give a +1 bonus to her AC, but more importantly, they give her 3 castings of shield per day. They're a callback to Wonder Woman's bracers, the ones she uses to deflect bullets and stuff. Not saying Dova was based on Wonder Woman or anything, but maybe just a slight influence, and hey, this narrator picked that one up pretty quick. This armor has been a part of Dova's identity for nearly 20 years. She never parted with any part of the armor and has had it constantly repaired and maintained. But that was when she traveled alone. Now Dova is traveling with a party. She came to the realization that in the context of fighting as a part of this party, she doesn't have to function as a frontline fighter anymore. The party has 2 others who are much more suited to frontline fighting, one of whom is a blind purple tiefling monk named Adrian. Dova and Adrian have become very close over the past few weeks of travel, and they've both begun to realize that they have strong feelings for one another. With Adrian and the newly joined paladin leading the charge up front, Dova realized she could now focus on flying above the fray and raining down spells on their enemies. To that end, she decided to buy boots of flying to give her more time in the air, even if she's not using her Aasimar racial feature to fly and boost her damage with extra radiant damage, and an amulet of health. Both of these items require attunement, and Dova already had one item she couldn't give up, her amulet of the devout. The other 2 attunement items she had were a cloak of protection and the bracers, meaning she'd have to give up the bracers if she wanted to keep the amulet, something she'd never even considered before. It was a hard choice, but in the end she realized that she knew someone else now who needed them more, Adrian, the one person other than her departed wife whom she would ever trust enough to give them to. Making the decision to give him those bracers, something that had been so close to her and such a big part of who she was Dova's acknowledgement to herself that Adrian meant even more. For years, she traveled alone, putting off the idea of finding someone new after her wife's death. She felt on some levels that she didn't deserve a second chance at love, that her one love had come and gone, and she made peace with that. When she realized that she was starting to feel like there may be a chance at love with Adrian, she prayed and asked for her dead wife to guide her if she was meant to have this chance. For Dova, the synergy of everything happening this way was a sign that her departed wife was giving her blessing for Dova to move on. A simple act, and something that Adrian doesn't realize the significance of yet, but it gave Dova peace. I have a tabaxi who is best friends with the fairy artificer. The tabaxi, fairy, and their charge were all vibing, and the artificer fell asleep. She put him on one of the pillows on one of the 2 beds, and he wound up cuddling one of the tabaxi's pet wolves, and it was adorable. My very mild, wholesome story. I couldn't really get my other party members a proper Christmas gift, so I schemed with the DM to craft them fun in-game outfits, which they still wear to this day. One of which has actually helped in our current session since we needed winter clothes, and a cloak already provides decent protection from the elements. I can think of 2 wholesome things. all the interactions between my PC and my boyfriend's PC in a canceled game we were in, and the time that the skeleton bard told my human artificer, the two of whom had been bickering back and forth and the skeleton has attacked twice, that he's like a brother to him as they were opening up to each other. My fighter is obsessed with any polearm weapons. Hey, I like spears, I'm with you, but dislikes children. What? What an odd thing to say. We once found an orphan child whom our party ended up adopting. The child, with help from our dwarven artificer, made the rod of wood, a wooden stick that could elongate and turn into a quarterstaff. From then on, my fighter protected that child and taught her how to properly use polearms. Aww. TLDR. Child makes a polearm weapon so the fighter will like them. Okay, to hell with the other stories. This one's too cute. I really like this one. I have a dragonborn artificer who joined the party originally for cash, you know, fat stacks of money, and to try to cure a curse. Ended up starting a trash band with the party and adopting a cursed sword mimic. Hey everyone, Brian Von Wholesome VA here. I hope everybody leaves a like, subscribes, and rings that bell so you can get notified when we go live. And, of course, check us out super live on Twitch. Check us out on TikTok where we post 30 to 60 second stories. Links are in the description below. Of course, if you want to submit a story to us, do so on our subreddit r/MrRipper. And come say hi to me over on Twitch. That's the best spot to come say hi to me at. Brian Von VA. Come say hi today. That being said, I try to end things on a wholesome or positive note. That is no different. I love wholesome stories. I really do. Especially when you get something like that one in the stories that we just read about a kid who wants to just, you know, do something nice and have something cool so somebody else likes them. That's just cute, okay? That's cute. Cats, kids, you know, animals, all that stuff. I love cutesy things, and there's nothing wrong with liking cutesy things. So, from me to all of you, it's okay to let out your emotions and to just kind of enjoy the cutesy and happy-go-lucky side of life. We don't do that and embrace that enough in the world. We might as well. So, don't worry about it. Enjoy it. All the love, be safe, be happy, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.